Welcome to Business as a Magical Practice, where your business is the vehicle for your self-integration and soul evolution. My name is Sam Garcia, and I'm the founder of Dirty Alchemy Digital Marketing. And I'll be guiding you through how you can use your business as a spiritual practice and what magical businesses are doing to hit their goals and change the world. Together, we'll be relating the mystical to the world of business so that our work can unite spirit and matter, shadow and light, conscious and unconscious. Let's dive in.
Everyone, welcome back to Business as a Magical Practice. Today, I have back on my good friend and collaborator and the lovely human, Robin Langford. Say hi, Robin.
Hello.
So Robin we had her on for the 2022 astrology report. She's a traditional astrologer and does fate and free will coaching and all sorts of amazing things. She's also the head coach of our Alchemical Business Accelerator and the beloved Implementation Dominatrix within that program. So we are talking today about neurodiversity and your business, and I'm really excited about this topic, and I'm really excited to talk with you specifically, Robin, and you know your background on this subject better than I do. So let's start with why are you uniquely able to talk about neurodiversity?
Alrighty. So I am neurodiverse. So that's one big way that I'm qualified. But beyond that, I also have a graduate degree in curriculum and instruction, which included extensive training on the various types of learning disabilities and other conditions such as autism or sensory processing disorders that children could have that would make the way they learn different. And I have a decade of experience. Actually, that's not true anymore. I have 2.5 decades of experience writing IEPs, which are individualized education plans, and those are used for students who learn differently, and it outlines the ways in which they have to have accommodations in order to thrive in a school setting. But the most useful thing that I learned in my graduate program was that FAIR isn't giving each student the same thing. It's giving each student what they need to be successful. And I approached all of my students that way to the best of my ability. And I think that just remembering that in general, when you're dealing with other humans, makes everything better.
Well, and how interesting that some schools were set up to accommodate different humans, neurodiversity, but a lot of us, listeners here own their own business and are often their own boss and are sometimes the only person in their business. So if you never learned how to best work with your brain and work with your neurodiversity, then you could be struggling more than you need to within your own business because you just never set up the right systems or the right way to relate to it. So I'm just so excited today. And before all this, let's go through what neurodiversity actually is.
Okay. From Harvard, it's just the idea, I think people should, how do I say this? I think that a lot of people go on to Instagram or Facebook or Twitter or one of the other social media platforms, and they see influencers or small business owners who decided to target the niche and who don't have any formal education or training in neurodiversity talking about it. And I think that it's important to go to authoritative sources, that's the historian in me, to find really good definitions. And neurodiversity is not a medical term. It is sort of an activism term, and it's used to describe the idea that people experience and interact with the world around them in many different ways, and that there's no one right way of thinking, learning, and behaving, and that differences are not the same as deficits. And so that incorporates a lot of things. But typically when people are using the word neurodiversity or ND, and y'all will probably hear us say neurodiverse and neurotypical a lot, or ND and NT, what they're usually talking about is something like autism. That's the most common one that people use, ADHD, learning disabilities, and sensory processing differences or sensory processing disorders. People use those terms interchangeably. And there are a whole host of things within that one little word. SPD has a ridiculous number of them, and most people have no idea that it even exists at all. it's crazy to me because I see it all around me because I'm so familiar with it. I'm like, oh, you're having an SPD reaction right now. That's fine.
I'm wondering where highly quote unquote highly sensitive people, like I have a feeling that a lot of those people are undiagnosed neurodiverse or with sensory processing disorder. Like,
yeah, highly sensitive person is another one, and it is actually falls under SPD. I mean, it's a more generalized term, and it's usually auditory or olfactory or visual, and they get too much information, and so it overwhelms them, and then they shut down. And a lot of these, I know I feel like I'm about to jump into something that I know you're going to ask later, but the thing about all of these is that there is no test. Like, you know how if you have a sore throat, you go to the doctor and they do a strep test to see if you have strep throat, or they do a COVID test to see if you have COVID, because they can look at it under a microscope and they can be like, oh, that's the strep, whatever it is, right? There's literally nothing that you can do that can 100% say that you have one of these things. Okay, so it's all a spectrum. People talk about autism being a spectrum, but literally just think of the human brain as being on a spectrum, and there's average, normal, typical, the way most people experience the world, and then there's all the other ways that people experience the world. And yeah, so they all have a lot of overlapping things, and the way that a psychiatrist or a therapist or whomever will diagnose one of these neurodiverse categories is by looking at the DSM-5. And that's I don't remember exactly what it's called, but that's the book that they look in and it has a list of criteria. Okay, well, do they have this, this, and this? And you have to have a certain number from each column to be diagnosed with whatever it is. And most of them, you have to have had it prevalent for an extended period going back into childhood. In the same way that you don't diagnose depression with a test. You have to have felt this way for a certain amount of time, going back a certain amount of time, but not usually to childhood. It's exactly the same way. And so people are like, well, I'm not officially diagnosed. I'm like, literally all you have to do is go to the checklist and see if you fit. And if it's beneficial for you, you can have a doctor do it, because there are medications that can help certain things like ADHD, and there are medications that can modify people's behavior if they're exhibiting a lot of stress or anxiety related to ADHD or as a result of whatever. But there's not something that's going to make you not be autistic. There's not something that's going to make you not have a sensory processing disorder. There are going to be medications that can treat the symptoms, your emotional symptoms of being overwhelmed by the things that make your brain different.
And it seems interesting right now that and maybe it's always shifting, like these kinds of things are always shifting, but you recommended I read Divergent Minds, which we've talked about on the podcast before. Excellent for any woman who thinks they're neurodiverse. It blew my mind of like, oh, actually all of these psychiatric disorders, or like whatever, I don't know the correct term to use here, but run by males, done on males, and women have been completely underserved. And so you were the first person who said, like, I think you have ADHD or something. And then I said to you, no, my brother had ADHD growing up and still does. And like, I'm definitely not like that. I did extremely well in school. I did straight A's. I studied physics in college. I got like a 4 point whatever GPA throughout all of it. Like, definitely don't have ADHD, never had any learning disabilities, all the things. And then I was diagnosed with ADHD. So very recently. And now I'm reading Taking Charge of Adult ADHD. And he's talking about in the beginning of like, he's like, actually, like I've done, like I was a part of creating the DSM whatever. And I have now doing a ton, like that's more for children. Adult ADHD is different. And like, here are all of the other symptoms that could be showing up and like that aren't included. So you might have ADHD, but like a normal psychologist or psychiatrist wouldn't diagnose you because all of this stuff is not applicable. So it's just like,
yeah, and
like a Wild West. Isn't it a Wild West?
It is. And so people are like, well, the psychiatrist, that I'm like, the psychiatry is not a hard science, it's a soft science. And it's just not like they try things, it works, I'm not trying to discount it. I think it's very valuable. I think that it helps a lot of people. And I also think that people shouldn't assume it's the same as E equals MC square, like, because it's not. And even that isn't, I mean, it's just not, it's not static. It's not gravity. It's not the speed of light. It's nothing like that. And
so in this vein, I have heard people people on Instagram be like, and I kind of I saw the truth to an aspect of this until I realized I surround myself with neurodiverse people who say that all people are neurodiverse. And like, I'm curious your take on this.
I think that I have a strong emotional reaction to that because in the same way that not all people have trauma, not all people are neurodiverse. There is a range of typical, right? And just because you want to be a special snowflake or you think it's cool to say, doesn't mean that you are neurodiverse. Like, you honestly, you should at least try the guidelines and see if they're applicable and look at it and not just be like, well, everybody's different because all brains are different, or everybody gets sad so we all have trauma. Like, no, that's not how that works. And it's discounting the struggles of the people who have autism at a severe degree, or the people who have sensory processing disorders that make it literally impossible for them to do certain things. And for you to equate that with, oh, I don't like that kind of music, so it's because I have SPD. No, that's not what that means. And I have very strong opinions about that. So while I don't think that the DSM is static or the end all be all, I do think that it's a good starting point. And if you can't go through that and recognize yourself, like you had that immediate reaction when you read Divergent Minds, because it was clearly obvious to you. You're like, holy catnip, that's for sure me, right? And if that's not your response to the checklist that they give you, then you're not. But that doesn't mean anything. And so what is true is that no two people think alike. No two people see the world in the same way. No two people see colors in the same way. Like that is true, but that is not what we mean when we say neurodiversity.
Mm-hmm. And is there a general idea around if there's like a percentage of people who are technically neurodiverse? And no,
I feel like there is, and I don't know what the number is.
Okay,
I can look at it. Take me like 2 minutes.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, let's do it. Let's look it up. And I'm guessing like a good percentage of especially women don't even know.
So that's the other thing about neurodiversity is exactly what you were saying. When the medical profession in general, and that doesn't just include psychiatrists and psychologists, it also includes medical trials, surgical outcomes, everything. They try to find a homogenous group of people, and it's usually white men for literally everything when it comes to research that isn't like strictly girl parts. And that's the reason things that have to do that only are applicable to female bodies aren't as researched as those things that occur with men. All of that is true. None of it represents women. And there's another book that's something like The Silent Woman that goes into all the ways that we've been excluded from research and how detrimental that is for women in general. And so I do recommend that, like, you start with the DSM and then you go, and if some of them are like, dang, that really sounds like me, then you go research and you find things like Divergent Mind or another book in that vein to like help you understand it.
And if anyone is going down the same rabbit hole as I'm going down, Taking Charge of Adult ADHD, it's like a big one in the ADHD space, and they have like all of his additional criteria. And like I'm only halfway through, but like in the beginning he talks about like a lot of people are like, oh no, everyone just thinks that way, and then he shows a bunch of like percentages of like 95% of adults with ADHD are like this, 3% of people without ADHD are like this, and like all of us with ADHD just assume everyone is like
and that's true for all of them, right? Like I didn't know I had sensory processing disorder until I was in my 30s, right? And mine is severe. Like, you've known me for a while. I mean, like, anybody who knows me knows you are not going to chew around me. It's not going to happen. I'm going to lose my flipping mind. I'm going to leave. There's going to be a noise machine. I can't handle it. And I mean, even you remember when we were in Chicago?
Yeah.
And they were going to do the filming and I like had a meltdown.
Yeah.
That was a sensory processing issue. There was too much and they were too close to me and there was too many smells and there was too much light. And it made me have, that's what a meltdown looks like. And that's adding to what I call the other neurodivergency, which I consider magical stuff to be, right?
Yeah.
And so I thought it was normal. Like I always thought I was normal. I didn't know everybody didn't think like me. I didn't know.
Yeah.
I literally thought people were making those noises to try to get me to hurt them. Like I figured like they know that bothers everybody. Why are they doing that?
Well, and what's interesting for me, and like we're just, I'm curious how people are going to think about this podcast because we're just really good friends and we're having a conversation. Like I think it's interesting, but like I'm like 99% sure my mom has ADHD or something more severe, and 100% sure my brother has hardcore ADHD. Like my husband is like the epitome of ADHD. If you like look down, he's like every single thing. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know the symptoms. And like now that I'm going down that rabbit hole, I'm like, oh, how interesting. I didn't even know that Eddie had ADHD. Or like I don't even, and like he's literally like poster child.
Yes, he is. In a really great way, though. In a really great way. I think he's a great.
Oh no, he's brilliant. He uses it, and also like he's insanely sensitive to light, and we're both insanely sensitive to smells, and I'm really sensitive to sounds, and like, and because we're both like in this weird little bubble together, it's like we don't even know it's weird. And like I'm wondering with the like in the entrepreneur, because I think we've talked about how like there's most entrepreneurs are not most, but like a higher percentage of entrepreneurs are neurodiverse than average population because we're just like trying to make it work in the world.
Well, okay, so I have multiple things to say. First, yes. The averages when I'm looking at ADHDaware.org.uk, 8% of the people in the UK are thought to have ADHD, 10% dyslexia, 8% dyspraxia. Those are various, they have a bunch of learning disabilities listed. 1% are on the autistic spectrum, 1% are thought to have Tourette's syndrome. But if you add all of those up together, it's like 20 or 30% of the population. And that's just one estimate. And again, I think estimates are like a grain of salt. So you're like, okay, it's not the majority of people is the way that I would say it, but we don't really know because so many people are undiagnosed, specifically because I'm the same way. All of my friends are neurodiverse. I don't think I have any that aren't. And it's interesting because then you are in an echo chamber almost where you're like, oh, this is just normal. Like, this is just how people think. But then I have to go be around people who aren't that way. And I didn't have to be around neurotypical people or people who weren't very fluent in neurodivergency for the last 2 years. And I just had an experience where I had to go take my children who are both autistic. I think I forgot to mention that. One's a level 3 and one's a level 1. And if you know what that means, great. And if you don't, what it means is level 1 is you can almost pass as normal. Level 3 means you need a lot of help. So I had to take them to an orthodontist appointment. And my children are so well behaved. And it doesn't matter if you compare them to neurotypical people, or if you say, like, you can compare them to neurotypical people, they're still so well behaved. Okay. But they don't behave normally. Right? They don't behave in a typical fashion. My youngest son stims, which means that he flaps his arms. He does vocal stereotypy, which means that he makes noises repetitively. His physical movements are very different. He has auditory processing issues, which means that he doesn't understand the spoken word. You need to write things down for him. He can hear, but he doesn't understand what you're saying, especially if he's emotional. And I've literally not been around a neurotypical person for 2 years. And I forgot that I don't like them. And I don't mean that in a mean way. I just mean that in a I don't like them way. So, and everybody's like, why don't you like
myself, but I'm laughing really hard over here.
Well, I do like them. I don't mean that, but I don't like the way that a lot of them respond to neurodiversity. And he was being calm, but he was being very autistic, right? And we took him back but because both of them can kind of pass, they didn't realize until we took them back for the exam, and they had to like spread the cheeks apart with the little plastic thing. And normally the person who's doing that is the child himself or the patient himself. And my youngest son can't do that because he didn't even understand what they wanted him to do. But he didn't. He wasn't like trying to fight them. He wasn't mad. He was just like, what's going on? You know? And so we did it for him. And we moved him when they how they wanted him for the pictures and everything. And the woman looked like she was dealing with a wild animal, and like she was scared, and like of my sweet little angel baby. And I'm like, my kid, I've never met, like, even when we went on the cruise, when we go to Disney World, when we go on flights, all of the service people are like, he is so amazing. And they want to give him stuff, and they just want to be around him because he's really genuinely that sweet. And her reaction took me back. Like, I was shocked and offended. And then they took my eldest back for x-rays. And then we were waiting for 30 minutes in this room with nobody coming in. And I finally, because I'm me, got up and I said, hey, why haven't you taken Wyatt back for x-rays? And they said, well, we're going to get him from his dentist. And I'm like, okay, but why? Because it seems to be taking a really long time. And they're like, let me just go check on it. And they brush it off. And then another nurse came in and did the same thing. And, oh no, we're just going to get it the other way. And very standoffish. And I said, okay, but wouldn't it be faster? No, we're just going to get it the other way. And then the doctor came in and said, we're waiting on the x-rays. I said, okay, but why? When you took x-rays of my other son, are you not taking x-rays of this one, if that's what would be quicker and what you normally do? And she said, well, you didn't want us to. I said, no, I've asked twice for it to be done. And the redeeming part of this whole story is that clearly she has experience with neurodiversity, because she was like, oh, really? And about 2 minutes later, they had taken him back for x-rays. And so they just didn't want to do it because he was different. And that's my example of how I forget that not everybody is inclusive, right? And I am with everybody. But that's the reaction that a lot of my students would get from other teachers, right? Like, if I had students who were on the spectrum, I had students who couldn't speak because they had a cleft palate and they hadn't had surgery. Like, there's a variety of things. And other teachers and other staff, I would see them treat these kids like they were animals, or like they didn't matter as much, or any of those things. And so that's why neurodiversity inclusion is so important to me. And it happens with entrepreneurs too, right? All the time. And the reason that I think a lot of neurodiverse people become entrepreneurs is because they face that in the workplace, because there is no neurodiversity acceptance or accommodations in the workplace. And so they go into a building that's overstimulating their sensory input, or they're being asked to do things with executive functioning skills that a lot of ADHD people just don't have, and they're not being given the accommodations they need. And so they feel like they just can't be a success. And they either take jobs that are beneath their intellectual capacity and interest level, or they go out and they start something like Tesla, or, something like that. Because they're like, all right, well, I can't play by your silly little rules anymore. I'm going to go do something that's going to blow your mind. Right. And that's actually the superpower of being neurodiverse with a high intellect. I mean, a high IQ. I mean, honestly, like, it is that you think outside of the box in such a massive way, that you think so differently from other people, be a creative genius, and that your ideas are what we call blue ocean ideas, right? Like, nobody else has even thought of the thing that you need, because it just never occurred to anybody else, because it's so far outside of what is neurotypical. I'm done with my rant.
So if you're listening and you're like, I have no idea, because I really did not know. Like, I knew I had depression in the past. I knew I would have dealt with anxiety. I knew I had some unresolved trauma and stuff, but I literally had no idea. So and who knows what other things. So I would love your opinion on people who know that neurodiverse, or like some things that could alert them to like look deeper.
Okay. So it's different for each type of diagnosis. So I'm going to go through some of the ones that I see a lot in the people around me. So ADHD in women specifically, but even in adult men, can look like having trouble paying bills on time, even when you have enough money and you really want to, missing appointments, finding that you have a lot of energy for some tasks and zero energy for others. It can look like feeling really inspired to spend It's called ADHD hyperfocus, but and if you have it, you're going to know, because it's like, I can spend a full day or a full month doing nothing but working on this one project and have tons of energy for it. But if you ask me to do this other thing, it's going to take me 6 months. Like, that's the kind of thing that'll happen with somebody who has ADHD. And having trouble with calendaring systems is usually also something, and which is a shame, because it's the reason that they have trouble with it is a thing called executive functioning, and they have trouble with executive functioning. And the way that you support somebody with executive functioning issues is that you give them a calendar, right? And so it's interesting that a lot of them are so resistant to it, when it's the thing that'll really make their life a lot easier once they are trained how to use it in an effective way. So that would be ADHD things that I would look for. Autism things would be difficulty understanding other people's extreme emotional states, what seem like extreme emotional states, or difficulty understanding that you have emotions, or knowing what your emotions are and being able to name them. Like, people will say, how do you feel? And you'd be like, fine. Or good or bad would be like the extent of what's easy to define for people. Those would be, so this, and I just want to make clear that I'm giving high functioning answers, right? So like I'm assuming that you're high functioning because you're an adult and you're listening and you don't already know. And so like, these are not the things that I would look for in a child. What else for autism? Sensory processing disorder is usually associated with autism, but you can have sensory processing disorder without it. So I'll go into those in a minute. Other really common things.
Isn't another one that like you are, and I don't know what it kind of sounds like a crossover with ADHD, but like you're excellent at your work and your routine, but then like stuff in like quote unquote normal life is extremely hard for you, or like going to the grocery store, or like cleaning your house, or like these like very like standard, quote unquote standard basic mundane things are extremely hard. Is that right?
So that can be true for all of them, and it just sort of depends on what's triggering it. So like for some people, it's hard for them to go to the grocery store because they get overwhelmed. They get sensory overwhelmed from the sounds in the grocery store because there's so much echo, or because the lights are so bright, or because there's so many choices. And those are sensory processing things that can be co-present with ADHD and autism. And so, yes, it just depends on the why. And that's when you start looking a little bit deeper. But yes, that would be a good indicator that you're neurodiverse in some way. If you're like, I'm really good at doing all of this work stuff, but I don't know how to clean a crock pot, that would be my example.
7 days of for me, current situation, I just cleaned up this month only because we had our house cleaner coming, is like literally a week's worth of dishes stacked up in a tiny kitchen, just there the entire week.
Well, and it also, like, there are different, like, people think about sensory processing disorder as being you get overwhelmed, but a lot of times it can be that you just don't notice things, right? And so the hack that I have for noticing if things are out of place, because most people think, oh, okay, this person has autism, that means they need everything to be in a certain order. Okay, that's true for some autistic people, but some autistic people literally don't even understand the order, right? There is no order for them, and they don't need the order, and they don't recognize that it's chaotic for other people. And that can be true for a lot of neurodiverse people. That's me. Like, I don't process that there's a mess unless I take a picture of it. And then when I look at the picture, I can see that it's a mess, but my brain filters it out if I'm just looking around. Like, I just don't even notice. And I'm the same way with words, right? Like, when I'm reading, I could never be an editor because I don't notice typos. I don't notice grammatical errors. And when I'm reading, my brain autocorrects for me. And that's neurodiversity. And I know people are gonna be like, what? No, everybody does that. I can hear it. I can hear them saying that because I've heard so many people who didn't know that they were neurodiverse when they met me be like, no, that's normal. That's normal, right? No. Oh, scripts are another one for autism. So, and this is one that it's called masking or scripting and a lot of women do it. They learn what they're supposed to say. And it's almost like if you've been given a play to read in your life, right? And so I didn't know that this wasn't normal until a few years ago, but apparently people go out and they have conversations and they don't have a plan for how to respond when people ask them personal questions. I didn't know that until a couple of years ago. Like, I know what I'm going to say based on what you're going to say. right? Not because I'm going to tell you anything about myself, because that's a script. That's like, if somebody says, how are you? What I used to think that meant when I was a kid was literally tell me how you are. That's not actually what people mean. What people mean is, this is how I'm going to greet you and say hello. And so what you're supposed to say is, I'm fine, or I'm good, or how are you? Like, you're supposed to say that, right? That's a script. And it's something that I can make people understand pretty easily, but I do it for literally everything. And if I don't have that, or somebody asks me something that I'm not expecting, I pause significantly. And sometimes I don't restart. Like, it takes a little while. I'll just be like, and I'm off in my little world because I don't have a script ready. And so that's another thing. But people who do it are like, wait, everybody doesn't do that?
That's so interesting.
Like, you're like, do you do that? I'm just curious.
I'm like, I don't know. I like what popped into my head was, I remember I'm a super deep sleeper now, but as a kid, I had really bad insomnia. Like, my dad taught me work. He just like pulled it out of his ass of like, focus on your breath. Like, I don't even like, he's not like nothing. And because I like couldn't sleep every single night. And I just remember just running conversations through my head, just hypothetical conversations, just over and 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 over again.
So that could actually be the ADHD, and that's overthinking and over analyzing social interactions. That could be ADHD and autism.
And then also what I thought about was just pure, me and my brother would bond over like not wanting to go to family gatherings because we would get so anxious around how to respond to like families, like questions around like, what's happening in your life, how's your career going, like all the things. And like and I don't know what that is. I just associated it with introversion and like being afraid of people.
Yeah, that kind of social anxiety can be an indicator of a bunch of different things. So I would say yes, if that's you, then you probably want to look at some of the neurodiversity labels. Because once you find the label, what's interesting to me is like, people don't label me, but honestly, what happens when people find out that there is a label for the way they experience the world, it's a huge amount of relief, because then they feel accepted and seen and like they're not crazy. Because a lot of people, like the term that people would use is gaslight, but I don't even think they mean to do it. They just discount what you're saying. Oh, you're just sensitive, or oh, you're just, whatever. And it's not like I can control it. It's like saying, oh, your eyes are just brown. Well, what does that mean? Like, that doesn't change the fact that I need it to be a different way if you want me to understand what you want me to do, right? Like, don't give me verbal instructions. You have to write it down. I have trouble with auditory processing.
I'm guessing next, like, what would you recommend? Is it like, I feel like the simple next step is like check for lists of like potential, maybe do you have any recommended ones, or like maybe we can include that in the show notes, the divergent minds, and then the adult, whatever, taking charge of adult ADHD. Like, they both had really great lists that you can check off of. They're both available on Scribd. If you have a Scribd account, if you don't have a Scribd account, what are you doing?
One of the things that I've recently found, and who I'll be working with, is going to be the STAR Institute in Denver, Colorado. And they do adult tests. They do sensory processing disorder and autism testing. But the reason that I'm really impressed with them is because there aren't a lot of places anywhere in the United States that work specifically with adults, or who work with those wide of a range of sensory processing differences as they do. And I was crazy impressed with their entire system. And they actually have checklists on their website.
Yeah, I was about to ask, how do you spell that? Like, I'm like, I want to pull together resources now. You guys, we're gonna put all of the resources we're talking about on the show notes for this podcast, which will be on thedirtyalchemy.com/blog.
It's actually a really easy one. It's sensoryhealth.org.
Oh, great. Okay.
But they have a lot of really good checklists, and they actually have an adult intake form that I really liked, and they will get back to you, and you'll get an email response saying, hey, it looks like you might want to get tested for this, or no, it doesn't look like this is something that, whatever. And then they have, once you do that, you can schedule a 45-minute telehealth consult with them that's free, to talk to them about it and talk about coming in there, because they see people from all over the country coming in to get tested if it's something that you are really interested in doing, and getting strategies. And so that's the other part. And the other reason, it's great to know that you're neurodiverse, but like, why does it matter? And it matters because the way you interact with the world, you've never been taught how to actually interact with the world in a way that's useful for you. You've been taught how to try to make yourself fit into a box of neurotypicalness, and you've been struggling your entire life to make that work when it's like putting square wheels on your human car. Like it's not as efficient, and your life can be so much easier and so much better, like 100% better than it is now.
A metaphor that I heard today, actually, that I feel like applies here is if you're an architect and you design a building and then you use a different building's methodology to build the building you're building, the same building a bunch of times over and over again, then like you will mess with the integrity of the structure of the building you're trying to build when you're trying to use a different building's methodology. It's just like, it's not actually a good way. It's not an effective way or efficient way or like a useful way even.
Well, and that's the reason that so many people that have so many adults who have ADHD and SPD and autism are actually diagnosed first with depression or anxiety, because you've been trying so hard to fit into this mode of being that is just not you. And so even suicide rates are higher.
Yeah.
It's horrible. Like, it's like it makes me so sad. I'm very much an advocate.
Yeah. So wait, let's go into strategies of like, how can you support yourself in your business if you're neurodiverse? What are some strategies?
It's such a big topic because there's so many ways that you can be neurodiverse. I'm trying to think of like, what are some things that I see work for everybody?
Okay, well, should we like kind of like, what are some basic, let's not try and cover everything. Like,
so every
single possible strategy.
I know, right? I'm like, well, we'll be here for a couple of days, but it'll be fun. We can hyper focus together. It'll be great. So one thing that I noticed with a lot of clients who I just want to be clear. I don't tell most people that I'm like, hey, I think you're neurodiverse. I will say things like, hey, I have this book I think you might like to read. And then I just wait for them to come back to me with, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Like, that's what I generally do. But one of the things that works really well with most of the people that I've interacted with who are neurodiverse but don't know that they are is something that it's not a technical term, but what it's called is body doubling. And there's no real scientific research behind it other than anecdotal. And this is where I want to go back again and say, pay attention to the anecdotal stuff, because this is still a new field, especially for women. Okay, so body doubling just means that you have somebody else present with you for a task that you are not hyper focused on if you're ADHD, or that you find stressful because it's challenging your sensory processing issues or anything else. And so body doubling just literally means that somebody sits with you and they can read a flipping book. They don't need to do anything else. They just need to be there while you do the thing. And I've done that for people who needed to file taxes. I've done that for people who needed to go to the DMV. I've done that for people who needed to do a funnel, right? They didn't actually need me. They just needed me to sit there. And so I do that. And that's actually something that we do in ABA. Do you want to tell them how we do that real quick?
Yeah. So that's something that we've implemented in the Alchemical Business Accelerator through co-working sessions, through our implementation sessions, by having time for people to come together. And just like, when I set this up, it was actually not with neurodiversity in mind. It was actually with human design in mind, of like, how do we it was like, how do we actually, for non-sacral people, or because we get a lot of non-sacrals, so we get a lot of manifestors and projectors in the program, and also manifesting generators, so like people going in a bunch of different directions. And I just figured, if we come together and we're all claiming at the beginning of the session what we're working on, and then you have a group together, like the non-sacrals can borrow the sacral's energies and like use their little engines in their sacral center for like their like that's what it was in mind. And then later with your knowledge, you're like, well, this actually works for neurodiversity because body doubling things, like we're doing it.
Well, and it's interesting, I have the sacral center. And so I'm like the little grounding center for everybody generally. You're like, oh, I didn't even know that's why you did it. Like, I had no idea, because I'm not a human design person, I'm an astrology person. But yeah, I work as Saturn for people.
And as a manifestor, I was like, I know that my clients use me to activate themselves. Like I help them initiate things, and that's like a part of my design. So like, I'm like, great, use me. I love it.
I had no idea that's where that came from. That's so cool. But see, I think that's another really good example though of you knew what people needed because you're neurodiverse. and you had a different language for it. And I know you haven't listened, and nobody else probably here has yet listened to it either. I just did a podcast on neurodiversity, and I had a point, but I don't know what the point was. So
wait, what's the name of the podcast? We'll include a link to it in the show notes.
Oh, it's the unmasking of a neurodiverse witch.
And that's on your podcast?
It is.
Okay, great.
I had a point. I was going somewhere with the point that was going to be.
You were talking about how I got to these because I was neurodiverse and was using a different language for it.
Language, magic. That's the language that I learned first. I learned magic words first for what I am. And so that's why I identify as a witch, and why I identify as an empath, but a psychiatrist would identify me as an HSP, a highly sensitive person. Right. Yeah. And so my theory is, and this is, I'm just, because I know we have so many magical people, right? Like, I think that a lot of the magical skills or talents like mediumship or seeing auras or doing energy healing or psychic knowing or remote viewing, I think those are actually all neurodiverse tendencies that haven't been codified in mainstream yet. HSP is the first one that got codified, but literally anybody who reads an HSP thing that has any knowledge at all about metaphysical stuff is like, that's an empath.
Yeah.
Everybody, right? Like, you saw it. Wasn't that your first thought?
Yes. Yeah. I was like, this is everyone I know. But which is also funny, side note, is one of my good friends from college is getting married. And I just went to a bachelorette party for her. We went to Sonoma. It was my first time in wine country. It was lovely. And I was the only self-employed person there.
Oh, wow.
Like, I'm around business owners, female business owners who are on the magical bent 24/7, like plus my husband, plus my dog in my house. It just was such a reminder of like, I'm in such a weird little corner of the world, a corner of the internet. And that's probably how if you're listening, you probably feel that way too. You go back to family reunions or high school reunions, or you go hang out with old friends from when you were a kid, and you're just like, oh yeah, I'm really weird. Oh yeah, like this isn't actually, especially with, it's even worse with Instagram now, because of like the algorithm is just like this echo chamber, and suddenly you think that everyone's a coach. It's like, oh wait, no, that's not true. Go out into like the quote unquote normal world, and you realize like we're just such a tiny portion. Yeah. I'll stop my rant.
No, I completely agree, because I forget all the time, and then I get around people who don't know thought work. And they're like out there living in the wild without managing their minds. And they like try to talk to me. And I'm like, that's just a thought. And they look at me like I said, that a demon's possessing you. Like, I mean, that's the way they look at me. And I'm just like, oh, right. Yeah. And that's when the thing I used to say all the time was, I don't like people, but that's not true. I do like people. I do. I tend to like neurodivergent people better. Because I understand them, because I understand their brains. Neurotypical people confuse me on a regular basis.
We went on such a tangent, and we were in the most juicy part of this episode, which is strategies.
Oh, tell me you're neurodivergent without telling me you're neurodivergent.
Let's wrangle it in. So we talked about body doubling. We got one.
That's the only one we got. Okay. So a lot of people, okay, I'm going to say sensory processing is what I see a lot of people having, that they have no idea is even a thing. And so if you get how do I say it without saying it in nerd talk? If loud noises bother you, if you have difficulty having a conversation with somebody in a crowded restaurant because you can't differentiate what's being said from all of the other.
My example of this is when we were off, me and Elizabeth from Team Dirty Alchemy were off supporting a client in her in-person event, and we were staying at an Airbnb together, and it was a 2-bedroom with 2 separate bathrooms attached, and the fan was on in her bathroom. And we were like, she started talking to me, and I was like, I cannot talk to you. I need to I just walked into the other room, turned off the light, and then came back. And I was just like, this is a normal thing. Like, of course I can't talk to you with that fan on in the other room. And she was like, this is how it like that's like a highly sensitive person thing. And I was like, okay.
That's a sensory processing issue. That's an auditory sensory processing issue. You're talking about the fan, the noise was bothering me.
On above my head is really bugging me, but it's hot in here. So like, I'm just listening to the little thing of the fan. That's fine.
Okay, so if that resonated with you, and it probably did, then a really good tactic is noise canceling headphones when you need to work, because it'll help you block out all those sounds. So like even a pencil clicking, or that noise that a clock will make whenever the battery's low and it just goes tick, 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 tick. Okay. Yeah. All of those things, if those kinds of things bother you, you probably have an SPD. Or if lights can be too bright, going out into the sun feels like a personal assault, I'm with you, and you wear big sunglasses, right? Like you want to wear that kind of thing. And so if you register with those, then you will probably do well with noise canceling headphones, big glasses, noise machines for white noise for when you need to block everything else out. Again, if you have a sensory processing disorder, you probably already know that most noise machines loop. And when they loop, it'll drive you crazy. Like I've thrown so many noise machines away just because when it loops, it'll wake me up. And I'm like, doesn't that bother everybody? That's not just me.
We used to keep an air conditioner on. And when I was a kid, I had an air purifier in my room for my asthma. And that was not looping. It was just cleaning the air.
Yeah, but that noise was soothing, right? Like it helped. Okay, so if you have a tactile sensory processing disorder, things that might bother you are really light touch. Like if somebody just barely touches you, it might cause a startle reflex. Or another way that you might know is if tags or certain types of clothing, you're just like, no, I'm not wearing that. Like I'm literally like, you're not putting wool on me, it's not happening. Or the seams and socks are things that people tend to notice. And for those types of people, things that can be soothing are body brushes, and that can help regulate your system all the time if that kind of thing feels good to you. Or really heavily weighted blankets can help calm that down.
You know something? I learned this in Luis Mojica's trauma healing course of like, one of the really basic things you do is like feel your body right now, then like go grab a pillow and put the pillow right in front of your torso and like feel how you feel. And I know that's like a trauma thing of like this like protection. And like I know that like it significantly impacted me. And I wonder if that could be a sensory processing thing, or is it just a trauma thing?
It could. So that's the other thing that I don't know if we're gonna have time to get into because we're already a little bit over. But like when you're neurodiverse, there's a lot of studies that have been done for autism specifically. Autism and ADHD are the ones that I've seen the most research on, that it can make your brain more prone to storing trauma in a way that's identified as PTSD. Because of the neurodivergency, your brain is just wired differently, and it can like hard code in the wrong kind of things, essentially. And so that's where that overlap kind of comes from. And are you telling me that when the pressure was on you, it made you able to feel your emotions, or it made you feel your emotions and it was easier to cope with them?
It was your system. Like it just like you feel calmer.
So that's a sensory processing regulation technique. And my guess is if that felt soothing to you, you would love a weighted blanket.
It's way too high here. I'm so interested in it. Or like holy animals, like
same thing. Well, and a lot of people who don't know what, like,
I think everyone who's neurodiverse, as someone who's not an expert in neurodiversity, I think all humans should have small animals or large animals around them all the time.
Unless they have auditory sensitivity, in which case probably not, because the sound of the licking drives you crazy.
Oh yeah, okay, fine, whatever.
There's one more thing that's like super common, and it's green spaces. For autistic people and for ADHD people, like if you don't, you don't have this problem because I know where you live, right? And I don't, but a lot of places have no greenery around them, and they have no nature around them. And nature is actually one of the best ways to regulate your system if you're neurodiverse. And so one of the things that you can do is put a lot of plants in your space and like have a green wall of that. Or even if you really can't do that, then you can do projectors of it, or like have videos of it playing where there's like trees blowing and stuff.
I wonder if blue would work too. Me and Eddie read a book a while ago on like all the studies around the ocean and
any kind of nature.
Like I'm wondering if the color blue would work as well for that. Just they're talking about like there's some studies on just like looking at pictures of the ocean, like and its effect on the brain and stuff. So
the answer is yes, but also you just reminded me of another thing that might help people realize that they are neurodiverse. You know how most buildings are this industrial beige or like cream color? Okay, a lot of people with SPD or HSP find that very stressful, and they have a lot of trouble focusing in those types of environments. They're very sensitive to colors and textures, and not having enough natural light. Like all of those can deregulate them. And for example, in my house, my walls are not, there's no white or brown anywhere in my house because those colors literally make it harder for me to exist on this planet. I can't.
I'm in a rental right now, and I can't paint, or like I don't want to have to paint it when we leave. So like if you've ever seen a YouTube video behind me, it's actually like drapes of like this really dark blue material that just like cover all the walls, because I'm just like, I just want to be, and I work in the dark. I would work with all the lights off. I'm just like me in my dark blue room.
But see, that's you finding an accommodation for yourself that helps your brain calm down, right? And the more that you learn, so you should really learn about SPDs. Like, I want you to go look. That's your next research project.
We'll do it. We'll do that next. Really, we're supposed to be doing quick strategies for
the environment. Though is a really good one.
Yeah.
The colors and the textures, like, so you know how like people have office chairs and they think that an office chair needs to look a certain way. A lot of people with neurodiversity should be sitting in like beanbag chairs or rocking chairs, or even sitting on the floor, like on a yoga mat or a yoga pillow. Like, just be willing to not do the normal thing and be willing to do whatever feels good to you, because that's probably gonna help you find relief faster than anything else.
We're probably doing that anyways.
They probably are. And then they're like, what do you mean everybody doesn't sit on a yoga ball? What? That's not true.
And then we did want to talk about ways we can support clients. You can support your clients who have neurodiversity.
So the one way that's super easy is, do you need any accommodations to work with me?
Asking them.
Yeah, just ask. Just be like, hey, I like to be inclusive. If you tell me what you need, I'm going to do my best to give it to you. And so what that could look like is providing transcripts for people. It could look like providing audio only, so they don't have to look at the video, because visually it can be overwhelming for them. There's a bunch of different things and they'll tell you, like, if they know, right? And if they don't know, one of the things that I do when I do a reading is I say, do you get visually overwhelmed very easily with a lot of information? Because when I pull up an astrology chart, it's a lot of information, right? And some people are like, no, I love it. I want all of the information. And some people are like, I do. You mean I don't have to look at it? I'm like, no, you don't have to look at it. I can look at it. That's fine.
When I, like, the first time that I worked with a practitioner that did phone calls instead of Zoom calls, I was just like, wait, you can do this?
And that's really good for ADHD people, because they can listen and they can pace and they can walk and they can move around.
Yeah, exactly. And just like staring at the screen, it's like, it's so much. It really bugs my brain and my heart.
Yeah. So just asking is the first step.
And I mean, things that we do, we already mentioned things we do in the Alchemical Business Accelerator. Are there any other things that I don't realize that we do that is actually supported?
Yeah, actually there's a lot that you do. So all of the templates that are in there where you've already created the organization for people, that's an executive functioning accommodation where you're not expecting them to go out and make a system for themselves. You're giving them the system. And that's actually really useful for most neurodivergent people who have trouble creating systems for themselves. And I've seen that a lot as I coach. Like their brains just don't work in a way that's meant for that, because they're very creative in a different way. And that's not wrong, but it's really hard to run a business if you don't have systems. And so that's a huge accommodation right there for anybody with executive functioning disorder. There's also a lot of written material just in general, like the workbook type stuff. That's
we transcribed and made workbooks from every single one of our trainings, because like, I know that some people, like I'm someone who I'd rather just listen to it as a video while I'm pacing around the house than like have to sit down and read it. I know you're the opposite.
That's right. And so being aware that people learn differently and having a way for them to learn in any of those ways. And so the 3 ways that I would suggest people do it are having audio recordings only, so that people can download them and walk around, having video recordings for the people who need to be able to see people's facial expressions, and then having a written format. But you do all of those. You also,
I'm wondering, because this is a preference of mine of like why I love Kajabi so much, and like why I'm willing to pay more, and why I prefer all of the courses I take to be on Kajabi, is because it keeps track of where you are in a video. Like, not only do you get to like mark off the videos that you've watched, but it also, like, if you pause in the middle of a video and you come back a week later, it will be where you were in that video. And there are so many courses that are not on, that I've taken that are not on that platform, that I have no idea. Like, I'm actually not going to go back and go to the thing, because I'm like, I don't know if I was halfway through the course. I don't know if I completed the course. I don't know if I'm like only did one lesson. I don't remember it all. And like, I think that I'm guessing that's a neurodiversity thing now that I'm like talking about it.
Yeah, no, it is. And I didn't know that was even I know Kajabi, right? Like, I know Kajabi really, really well. I didn't even know that was a feature because I never watch videos. Ever.
Yeah, it stops. So like, it's amazing. Like, you can just like pause it while like watch half a video or listen to, I listen. I don't ever watch the video. I listen to the video while I do dishes. And then if I don't finish it, I go back to it later. It's amazing.
Yeah. And I had no idea because I'm always going to download the PDF every single time. And I'm going to print it out because that's another thing, like, that might tell you that you have if you have trouble reading on a screen and it's literally harder for you to do, that can be an indication of a couple of different types of neurodiversity, where you need to have it printed out so that you can physically touch it. I can't read Kindles. I don't even know how people manage it. I'm like, I don't know how that works. It blows my mind. Other things in ABA.
On that note, is like, one thing we do is like, every time that someone joins Business Accelerator, we send them like a little welcome box, which includes the printed out all of the transcripts, all of the workbooks in one big workbook. And it's like, it's thick. It's like, there's a lot of material. So like, it's like a 100-page big book, but it's like everything for the program all printed out, so I'm hearing now that that's actually neurodivergent supportive, because I joined programs and they have like individual workbooks for each module. And like, you have to like compile that. If you want to print it out, you have to like individually find them, then like format them and like compile them, and then like send it to a printer. And like, I will do that because it's worth it to me, but like, I'm assuming most people won't do that.
Anybody who has executive functioning things in that specific way wouldn't even be able to, like, it wouldn't even occur to them that was a possibility. So yes, that's one thing, but beyond that, like, I know that you include a bunch of sensory things in those boxes, and I don't know if you know that that's what you're doing, but like, you're integrating it, but you're doing it because you are neurodiverse, right? Like, it's the way that your brain works is like, oh, well, of course we need to have something that's scented, and we need to have something that we can drink, and we need to have this, and we need to have that. And what that is sensory integration for a learning experience, so that people remember what they're doing in a more embodied way. And you think, of course, that's how you do it, but literally it's not. Like, it's not how a neurotypical person would put it together, because it wouldn't even occur to them. Which I want to say, like, I feel like a lot of people think that a label of neurodiversity is a bad thing, or it's something that they have to overcome, or it's something that they should be ashamed of because people have made them feel ashamed of the qualities that have led to the diagnosis. And what I want to offer is, I don't see it that way. I see it as almost a superpower when you learn to harness it, and when you learn to lean into the things that it makes you really good at, and you learn to accommodate yourself for the things that you need accommodations for. Like, you wouldn't say that somebody who's blind is less than because they need to read with Braille, right? You wouldn't say that. But people will say that about their ADHD or their autism. And I'm like, why would you even want to think that? Like, how is that useful? It's not useful. Don't do that.
And it's going to allow you to be a very successful entrepreneur.
it can. I mean, like, there's a disproportionate number of neurodiversity people in entrepreneurial roles, and anything that needs out of the box thinking, right? So you're going to find a lot of neurodiverse people in physics. You're going to find a lot of them in art. You're going to find a lot of them in cutting edge technology in Silicon Valley, in any area where it's a detriment to do things the way they've always been done.
I love that. I love that so much. Okay, so we should wrap this up.
Why?
I know I don't want to, but like, I know that you have children.
I know. We're like, it'll be 45 minutes. No, it won't.
No, we're gonna have to do like a part 2, or like a a different version of this because this is really fun and I want to keep going, but we can't keep going because
should get people to ask
have to stop.
questions.
Yeah, you guys, we would love to hear, send in questions if you have them, or like stories. We would love to hear your stories. We would love to hear what strategies work really well for you, even if you are undiagnosed, like weird things you do in your business that you feel like are supportive for you. You want to know about them. What are you covering your mouth for?
Because I'm trying not to interrupt you, but I just thought of another thing that might be really useful for the people who
that's an ADHD thing. I didn't know that until recently. Like you actually, like an executive functioning thing, like you have to like physically cover. Like, and I thought that was like I thought that was cool. Anyways, continue.
Oh, so yeah. So they don't know that I was physically covering my mouth to keep myself from interrupting.
Yeah.
Okay. So a lot of people don't realize that they're proprioceptive seeking, and that just means that they need more physical stimulation to be able to make their brain work. So one of the reasons that you work better when you're walking is because of that movement. And so people who are like that, swinging also works really well. Getting a trampoline works really well. And doing things that create impact for your body can help make it where you can focus better and learn better. And so I think that's a really good thing for anybody who recognizes that they need to pace or that they like high impact things. The thing that I see kids do is bouncing back and forth, kind of like this, which I know y'all can't see, but imagine a rocking chair that's in a straight back chair. That's what it looks like. That's one of the ways that you know that's what that person's seeking. And trampolines are a really easy thing that you could put in an office, right? Or in your home.
And they're great for your lymphatic system, which is attached to your immune system. It's so healthy. Do it. Yep.
I can't do it because of mine is the exact opposite, but I know so many people who it's great for.
Really bad vertigo. Like I feel like that would like really affect her.
Yeah, I can't do it at all. Like there's no walking for me after that.
Okay. You guys, this was so fun. So we need to do more of these. Let us know if you had fun with this. If you want support, if you are an online business owner, a course creator, a coach who wants support in setting up a business and the foundation of their business that's supportive of their neurodiversity, we help you with that in the Alchemical Business Accelerator, which is open right now for you to join. And we have some really, really fun bonuses right now, including if you join with, I don't know the time frame. I don't know when this is coming out, so I'm not going to give you time frames, but one of the bonuses is you get a 2-hour astrology reading with Robin, who we've been talking to today, which will cover your natal chart. But what's more fun than that is we'll give you a 6-month forecast of how you specifically will align your business with the cosmos. And a lot of if you're just hearing forecasts on the internet, you're hearing for the general collective where this is you and your unique chart and your unique business. How do you align it with the astrology, which can be different than what's happening in the collective, which is so good. You get an onboarding call with Robin when you join. You get weekly calls with me. You get monthly calls with Robin. You get access to our professional copywriter, and any copy you write, you get editing and feedback on that you can submit to her, which is worth the entire cost of the program. Any of these individual elements, in my opinion, is worth any of it. The cost of the program. So all you have to do is head on over to thedirtyalchemy.com/apply, or there'll be a link in the show notes, and you can just click that and book a call with me, and we'll chat if you are in the right place in your business, if the program is a right fit for you. And do you have any closing notes, Robin?
They should for sure join ABA. Well, they should. It does. I mean, I've seen so many people have such phenomenal growth and realizations about themselves, their business, how they work best, ways that they want to take their business. It's such a wonderful, wonderful group of people. And
it's such a supportive, beautiful group of people. It just makes my heart melt.
I love them. I love them so much. I love them so much. I love the group.
Okay, we love you. We can't wait to hear from you.